What's going on, guys? Albie with Albie Fitness Gaming, and you've seen the title of the video. You know why you're here. Bah! Mono White Death and Taxes versus BANT Spirits. This is a very, very tough matchup. It's winnable, but it's tough. So this hand is very good, and obviously we do not know we're playing against BANT Spirits. But this hand is solid. We have our Aether Vial, which we always want. We have our Stoneforge Mystic, so we know we're going to have a threat. We have our Disruption and Thalia, and then we have Horizon Canopy in case we get flooded, and Field of Ruin in case we have to get rid of a troublesome land. So we have a really good hand here. So opponent plays a Spirit here, the Wanderer, and all I'm thinking in my head is like, man, this matchup is rough. Especially when we have two Thalias, because Thalia doesn't really do much against this deck. And at this point, I'm thinking, I hope it's blue-white and not BANT. BANT Spirits is a lot harder to beat than blue-white because they have Collected Company and Noble Hierarch to help them power out these draws. But at the same time, if they are playing BANT, at least Thalia can play a little bit, right? Because we can slow down those Collected Companies. So you're going to see here why Spirits is such a tough matchup here for us. But again, it's not, you can't give up. Because like I mentioned in some other videos, when you're playing decks like Death and Taxes, any form of Hate Bear decks, you have to get used to, you're always going to be behind your opponent most games, and you play from that position, and then you win, right? So you really have to grind for your wins. You have to fight for your wins. That's why you should never scoop when you're playing these type of decks. And you always have to plan for the long term of the game. So here we're going to go with, of course, the Stoneforge Mystic, and we're going to show why this card has made this deck tier 1. This card, along with Skyclave, is what's made Death and Taxes a deck in Modern. A playable deck. I mean, it's always been a deck since the beginning of time, but now we can say it's an actual deck. Like, you can do well with it. So we're gonna grab the Sword of Fire and Ice. That sword is obviously very good against Spirits, right? Because they can't block our creatures, plus we can take out one of theirs with it. Skyclave, what a beating. So the opponent takes out the Stoneforge here. I would have probably, it's tough to say. It's tough to say whether you take the Stoneforge or the Aether Vial. Taking the Aether Vial definitely slows us down. And we do have 6 cards in our hand. Me personally, when I'm playing against an Aether Vial deck, what makes my decision on whether or not I attack the Aether Vial or maybe a Stoneforge is how many cards they have in their hand and what do I have. So I don't know what they have, but because I have 6 cards in my hand, I probably would have wanted to take the Aether Vial just because it's going to slow me down. With the Aether Vial is going to allow me to play multiple threats a turn. So here we're going to upkeep Thalia. And the reason we're doing this is because they are banned, so they can play Collected Company this turn if they play a land. So this is going to prevent them from being able to play the Collected Company. And if they would have killed the Vial, then, I mean, now we just have a Stoneforge. Sure, we cheat in this sword, but now they have a Collected Company. Now, opponent, gonna boost their team here. We do have the sword. So now I'm thinking, okay, what can really get us out of this situation here, out of this bind, is we equip the sword, we attack. But we need a Path to Exile. That's what we need. If we can get a path, we can path the captain, and then we could go to town with the sword. We don't draw the path. So things are looking very, very rough for us. We're going to lose this game. There's no way for us to win. There's nothing that we can do right here. But I'm going to go ahead and equip the sword anyways and send a message. Let them know that we're not going out without a fight. I'm going to hit them with the sword. and then we're going to scoop and move on to the next game. After sideboard, this matchup gets a lot better. Alright, so we send our message. Maybe the opponent doesn't attack us here for some strange reason. Right now I'm just fishing for information. I'm seeing if they have any other flash cards that we should be worried about. And they didn't do anything, so, you know. There's a very slim chance they would have cast something there, but you never know, right? Like, it's free to just let them attack and then activate Aether Vial. Pretty much trying to get the most out of our cards as we can. So, Wind of Abandonment is the best sideboard card you could bring in here. If you have a Winds of Abandonment, you're thinking of this card more as a mass removal spell rather than a 1-for-1. So, the way that I look at it is, okay, if I draw the Winds of Abandonment, then all I have to do is survive until turn 6. Or until I have 6 mana, and then we can wipe their board. Because even though their guys are going to have hexproof or whatnot, it doesn't matter. So, that's the game plan. Chances of us outspeeding them, probably not going to happen. We play the Aven Mind Sensor because it has flying, and we are going to need flyers to block. So we do have the Wind of Abandonment here. The hand is pretty slow. We have Giver of Ruins, turn 1. We have Path that's going to buy us some time. We have Flicker Wisp that can block, also buy us some time. We have a sword that we can equip as soon as it comes into play, which gives our creatures flying, which in tail can give us some more time. And like I mentioned before, the strategy is simple. If we have the Winds of Abandonment, we just need to survive until we can cast that card and wipe out their whole team. That is going to be how we're going to win, because we are not going to be faster than them. It is what it is. So they play an Aether Vial. That's actually good for us. Aether Vial is good, but it does mean they're going to have a slower start, maybe by a turn. So no reason not to attack with the Giver of Ruins here. It cannot protect itself. It's not like Mother of Ruins. So what we're thinking here is, okay, we can path something because we have mana up, but next turn, what we probably want to do, and obviously we don't know because we don't know what we're going to draw, but most likely what we're going to do is we're going to cast the Skyclave Sword and attach it to the Giver of Ruins. So we draw Stoneforge Mystic here, and all of a sudden, that plan of casting the Skyclave no longer makes sense, right? Because keep in mind, the plan has always been to buy time. Because we want to get off this Wind of Abandonment. So I know some people may be thinking, how come you didn't path the Supreme Phantom at the end of turn? You had the mana up. And it was because they had Aether Vial. They could have played the Wanderer, But two at the same time, I was thinking, do I want to path this guy or do I want to see if I can get more value off the Wind of Abandonment? Here I decide to just path it just to buy some more time, which is the right play. I was just, trying to give you guys other scenarios we could have ran. Mainly the vials on 1 for Wanderer. We don't want to get our spell countered. So they play Noble Hierarch off of that. So now they have plenty of mana. They pass the turn. I'm assuming they have Spell Queller or Collected Company or both, but they could only play one. And then here, we draw another Stoneforge. Stoneforge, still very good. So, we don't want to play anything into a Spell Queller. And just like I expected, it's a Collected Company. We can always vial in the Skyclave and attach it and hit them with a surprise block and kind of get some value there. So that's one thing, that's one reason to leave your mana up. But mainly, like, you don't want to play anything, right? Like, they got Vial, they have Collected Companies, they have Spell Quellers. Right now we just have to sit back and stick to the plan. Buy time and blow them out with this Wind of Abandonment. So here goes the play that I was talking about. Opponent had a sick read here. I don't think they knew that obviously we were going to do this. Actually, let's not say they had a sick read. We're playing Stoneforge Mystic, right? Like, they know they need to bring in Artifact Hate, but this was a really good play on our opponent here that's about to happen. I think this is the game. So we switch blockers here because I'm thinking, okay, if they bring in something like a Drug Skull Captain, they can pump their team and we won't be able to kill the Spell Queller, so we might as well block something we can kill. And there is the Knight of Autumn. Now, we still trade, which is not too bad. Losing the Skyclave sword it sucks, but it's not terrible. We still have the Sword of Fire and Ice, which is a better sword in this matchup. And now, it's kind of like we want to play this Stoneforge, we want to grab a Batter Skull, but we got to hope they don't have a Spell Queller. And there it is. Spell Queller. So right now I'm looking at the cards in hand. They got 2 cards. I'm like, okay, this is good news for us in a way, because now we're able to get this sword into play. We're 2 mana away from casting our Wind of Abandonment. We're at 18. And, their pressure is not too bad. So the way I'm thinking is, like, if we get this Wind of Abandonment off and they have close to 0 cards in hand, we're going to have a Stoneforge in play. We're going to grab a Batter Skull. We're going to have a Sword of Fire and Ice in play. And we have a Flicker Wisp. We're going to win. Like, we're not... It is what it is. Like... And that has been the strategy since the beginning of the game. And I always stress this in a lot of my games. You have to have a plan to victory with these decks from the beginning. And you have to play that plan out. Because if you try to play turn by turn with no plan, it's going to be very, very hard to win games with these style decks. Because like I always mention, you're always playing from behind. So you always have to be planning ahead and working towards that goal. So they have 2 cards in hand, playing the Skyclave. They're taking the sword here. They end up trading, which is really good. I mean, they could have been tempted to just take 1 damage and then swing in for 8 next turn. but they choose not to. So we're going to flicker with the Spell Queller here. And then, bada bing, bada boom, they catch us. Now, at this point here, right, we're 1 mana away from the Winds of Abandonment. So all I'm thinking in my head is like, all right, this is perfect for us. This is working out very well if we draw a land. And boom, oh my God, they hit us with the Path to Exile, folks. And they have 0 cards in hand. They have a sword with their Skyclave, which is going to give us a creature. They have the Spell Queller on the Stoneforge Mystic, and they play a land. This, now we are, we're good now. I mean, they basically want us to game with that path. I think that path, obviously they didn't know we were playing Winds of Abandonment, but if they had a read on it, they could have avoided it by not using that path. And now we make our comeback. Winds of Abandonment, they have 1 card in hand. And now we are going to be in a dominating position here. We're definitely not out of the woods yet, but now we're going to be able to grab that Batterskull. We have the Archon, and we have a 3/3 and a Stoneforge. And they have 1 card. Now, to be fair, that 1 card could have been Collected Company, which can put them back in the game. We're only at 6, but it's not, and they scoop. So, keeping the same configuration here of the deck. I don't see anything else that we could bring in against them. Winds of Abandonment is an all-star card. It's a card that I believe every Death and Taxes deck should be playing in their sideboard. And that card should be used 9 times out of 10 as a sweeper. There's no reason to be trading it 1 for 1. You have Path and you have Skyclave. You have 8 other ways to get rid of threats 1 for 1. Put it in your sideboard and use it for matchups like this. Other faster, disruptive creature decks. So the hand is whatever. We have our Giver of Ruins, our Leon Arbiter, and our Path to Exile. They're leading off with a Noble Hierarch, so they're going to be able to Spell Queller on our turn 2 play if they choose to be. We end up getting a little lucky here. They do not play a land. If they would have played a land, we would have been in big trouble here. So now it's a good time to lead with the Leon Arbiter. Because now if they do have a land, especially if it's a fetch land, they have to spend their entire turn just to crack that fetch land. So them not playing a land right there really gave us a window to get ahead, which normally we're always playing from behind against Spirits, but this time we're slightly ahead right now. And they still have, 2 mana Spirits. Obviously, they can still play Magic. But the game plan now for us is like, if we can Path that Noble, if we can Ghost Quarter that Temple Garden, if we can get rid of any one of these 2 things, we'll be in commanding position. Now, we don't want to go for any of those just yet because they can pay for the Leon Arbiter. So instead, we're going to try to put on as much pressure as we can, because what we want them to do is they're going to be able to play on our turn because of the Rattle Chain, which is unfortunate. We have to get rid of that guy. But eventually, they're going to have to tap out. If they don't get any more lands, they're going to have to tap out, right? Any non-fetch lands. And once they tap out on their turn, we're going to be able to blow them out. We're going to be able to Ghost Quarter them and Path their Noble, and then they're going to be pretty much stuck with whatever they have in play. And hopefully we can win from this position or and continue progressing our board state. Horizon Canopy, the draw here. So now we have Field of Ruin and Ghost Quarter and Path, so we can get rid of 2 lands and a Noble Hierarch. That's the way that I'm thinking right now. I'm thinking, okay, the way we're going to win this game, since we already have a sword and a Giver of Ruin with now Leon Arbor as our threat, if we can just keep them from casting bigger, better spells, there's no way they can win. And like I mentioned, the opponent will eventually have to cast a spell on their turn. Or do something. Because if they're just going to continue throwing in 2-mana spells, like, we're fine with that. So here, we are going to path. And we're going to force the action. Now, they could have a Rattle Chains here, right? But that's fine. Because then we can just Ghost Quarter them. So they're going to search. We don't care at this point because, like I mentioned earlier, we have the Ghost Quarter and we have the Field of Ruin. So we're going to be able to take care of both of those lands. So now we're going to leave them with just a Noble Hierarch as their source for mana. So, you know, like I always mention, figure out your game plan early on in the game and then play towards that game plan. Every time you're playing these decks, you figure out your game plan based on your hand, based on the matchup, based on a few cards that you see. You're going to have a game plan, and then you play towards that game plan towards victory. Now, obviously, things happen, and you have to change things here and there. But for the most part, as long as you're playing like that, you're always going to be playing to your outs, you know, and you're not going to care whether you're behind or not. A lot of times, players, they'll fall behind with these decks, which is common, and they'll concede, or they'll be like, oh, this deck is bad, I don't know how people win. And it's because you're always playing from behind, right? You're always playing from a losing position, and that's why these decks are like very hard to play, and a lot of people don't find them fun because a lot of Magic players don't like to play from losing positions. They like to play from winning positions. That's why so many people like playing blue-white control decks, right? Because you get to win for like an hour before you close out the game. Anyways, guys, I hope you found the video informative and entertaining. Please hit that like button. Subscribe and share. It helps out a lot. And again, thank you guys for watching.